hill training. If you're looking to improve your fitness, or if you're looking to race a Hilly course, this video is for you. Today I'm walking you through different tips on hill training, both high intensity and lower mild incline kind of intensity, so that you're going to improve your fitness, but also so that the hills now are not your enemy. You're a strong uphill and downhill runner from now on. Hi, I'm Simon. I'm an ultra runner. I'm making these how-to ultra run videos. So hopefully these videos are helpful and they will inspire you to work on yourself and to get into the sport and achieve what you thought would be impossible. Today I want to talk a little bit about hill training. How can you become a stronger runner, both increasing your fitness using hill repeats, for example, but also becoming a strong trail runner, because hills, both uphill and downhill, are a big part of what is different between road racing and trail running. The first clarification I want to put out there is that I see a huge difference between hill training and training for hills. It sounds the same, but it's not quite the same. One is about using the hills to improve your fitness, which of course will help training for hills, but training for hills is a bigger category that will encompass things that go beyond just hill training, and I'll get into that later. But hopefully if you're watching this video because you signed up for a race, a mountain race, and you want to become a stronger runner both uphill and downhill, I'm going to walk you through these things. I won't just talk about hill repeat, but also these other things that you need to do to improve your fitness and to be able to push these races where you go 20, 30, 40,000 feet of gain and stay relatively strong through the process. There's two types of hill training. One is more of a high burst of energy, and if you're just looking in your training schedule, I helped you build one in one of my videos, and 80% of the mileage should be slow mileage, zone 2, whatever you call it. Basically it's those longer runs where you're going slower, but there is a 20% that is extremely important, where you're building resistance to high pressure on your joints in general. You're building your cardiovascular system, and these are the higher intensity. And you can do a lot of different things. You can do speed workout where you go faster than your marathon pace. You can do short intervals, but you can also do hill repeat, and it's a great way to push your heart rate up, is to use these hills, obviously the uphill. But what makes it so practical when you have a hill is that you're going uphill, it's very intense, and then you go down, which is your break, and then you go up. So in many ways it's very similar to interval training, where you would do maybe a lap or two around a track, so 400 or 800 meter, and then you would slow down, and then you would do one or two more, and so on. So the hill repeat is serving that purpose of reaching a higher heart rate zone. There's also another type of hill training which is not about reaching that high intensity, which is not about reaching that high heart rate and this just, I can do that for a few minutes and then I'm pooped out. It's more the moderate incline, where you're gonna feel your legs will become very heavy. Yes, your heart rate will go higher, but it's not about pushing your pace to an unsustainable level, but rather finding this milder pace that helps you get up a hill faster. And they're both useful, and obviously they serve different purposes. So I personally do both, and I highly recommend that you do both based on what you're trying to achieve. And the last bit of information before we really dive into, I'm not a professional runner. You're not a professional runner. We're busy and we have limited resource. I don't have access to a track, for example. So use what is available, both in terms of proximity. So sure, I could go to the mountain, and that would take me an hour and a half drive to get there and come back. So yeah, 3 hours of just driving for a training session. I don't have that kind of time. So I need to find something that is closer to home. It won't be the big mountain, but it will be a hill maybe around where I lived. But even if you don't have access to that, when I lived in Cambridge, what I would do is there's the Harvard Stadium, and then you just do the bench, So you come up and down, up and down. That's a way to do hill repeat, because Cambridge is pretty darn flat. And if you don't even have access to these things, you could look into using a treadmill where you can adjust the incline. I actually set those in the order of what I would rather do, but there's many options, so use what's available to you, because it's hard to stay consistent in training. That's one of the hardest thing I think in ultra running. It's easy to be very motivated for a month or two and do everything perfectly, and then life happens, and then you're busy, and then you don't have energy, and you start cutting back. And if you go overboard at the beginning, like you drive 3 hours in the weekend to do your long run, and that's taking you the whole Saturday is just your long run, that's not sustainable, and you won't be able to keep that pace potentially, and you won't have the appropriate training. Whereas if you just do it close to your house, sometimes that makes it accessible, that makes it easier to stick to that schedule, to not overdo it. Again, we're not professional, we can't spend 5 hours a day on training. How often should you do these workouts? I think that twice a week is plenty enough. 2 intense sessions of hill repeat is plenty. One would probably be enough. And I usually don't do hill repeat per se twice a week. It's probably more once a week, and then I'll do hill training another day. Before you get into any high intensity workout, and that's true for hill repeat, but that's true for interval or anything like that, it's important to warm up. And warming up, the best way you can do that, running, don't overthink it. Maybe running is the best way to activate the muscle that you'll use when you run afterwards. It sounds silly, but it is what it is. So you start at a lower pace. You're moving, you're jogging a little bit, you're getting active, but you're not really getting tired by it. And that's a pace that you should do for about 10-15 minutes. For me, because of where the hill is, the warm-up kind of happens by itself. And similarly, after a high intensity workout like that, where your heart rate will go into 180, 190, when I come back, well, I'm just easy jogging. You could even walk, and that's your cool down, just to have blood flowing in your legs. That will help with soreness. Then you can stretch afterwards, but just having this kind of lower intensity after this high burst of energy. So for your hill repeat, it's much more about a short burst for a very steep climb that you just push through, and use what you have available, but something that will take you about a minute, maybe 2 minutes to climb is probably what you should aim for. So you go all in on that climb, you really push. It's gonna be really tough. It should be an effort of about a minute, 2 minutes, where you give an all in, and you will go up that hill or these bench. It's going to take about a minute or two. Then you come down slowly. When you're going down, the point is not to run downhill. That's the other workout we'll talk about. Now it's just to cool down. Take your time. That's when your heart rate will go down to something that is a little bit more reasonable, so that you can go all in again. And how long are you doing that for? Really depends on your fitness. It's kind of pointless to do, I think, more than like a 30-minute, 40-minute of that. If you're able to do more than 40 minutes of high intensity hill repeat, and you should ask yourself, am I really doing high intensity here? Maybe you should push a little harder. So 30-40 minutes would be the max, but at the beginning, maybe you can count the number of times you go up and down the hill, and you will feel it. You will feel it that I'm not able to produce this output anymore. Maybe it happens after, say, like 4 times. You know what? You're starting. Record that somewhere in your little diary. Dear diary, today I did hill repeat because Simon said so. I was puking after 4 repeat. It was a terrible idea. Sincerely yours, Simon. And then in a few months, you're gonna be at 8, 9, 10 potentially, and then you're touching more that 30-40 minute total session time, and then you have the warm up and the cool down afterwards. But that's where you're at your full bloom. More than that, yeah, I think first of all you're maybe not pushing enough in terms of intensity, and second of all you're increasing the risk of injury. Then the second type of training that you do with hills, it's a a grind session. And a grind session could last much longer than that. What you're looking for is a hill that is not like this anymore. It's a hill that you can run or jog the whole way. And if you have a big mountain, that's the best way to do that. If you have a treadmill, that's another great way to do that. And maybe you're doing a session of 30 minute, 40 minute where you're climbing. What's great about a treadmill is that you can adjust it. So as you become in better shape, the incline will increase. So, you know, maybe you were at 5% first and now you're 7% and you're still able to jog at a decent pace, and then 9% and 10%. So you will see what is your comfort level to do that. On the flip side, using an actual hill is more complex in terms of logistics because you have to have a hill that is pretty big and runnable. But it's pretty amazing to see the time evolution that, you know, a few months ago I was doing this in 25 minutes and now I do it in 15. In these hill training session, you should still aim to do a warm-up and a cool down, but it's not as critical because you're not looking to have your heart rate go through the roof. You're looking for something that is a little bit more reasonable. And what you're trying to achieve with this hill training is a little different. You're building your muscle, and what you will feel, your legs should feel heavy when you're doing that. That's the big difference between running flat and this, is you're gonna be slower obviously, but your legs, they will feel very heavy and you're rebuilding the muscle there. If you were watching this because you were hill training, then that's it. You know, this is the end of the story. If you're training for hills, then you gotta stick a little longer here. So first, you know, with the incline run, one of the things that you're learning is what can you run and for how long, because that's going to be very helpful in a race. When you look at an incline, if it's like a 1% incline, maybe you should be running that. If it's a, you know, 45 degree, yeah, you should probably walk this. You're probably as fast walking as running, and just getting used to hills by these moderate incline will really help you gauge what level of effort you're able to output. The other thing that you're doing by running a hill like that is that you're gonna run down. And have you noticed something? It sure feels to me that we talked only about uphill running, and that's a big difference between hill training, you're trying to climb, versus training for hills, you gotta get down. And getting down is not as easy as it sounds. The obvious big one is if it's a technical trail, it's much easier to go uphill hiking than running downhill something that is technical. So practice that. Practice the technical aspect of hill running. Let's not die. And you will lose a lot of time if you're not used to running downhill on trail. On the flip side, you might hurt yourself real bad if you're too comfortable about just like sliding down like a maniac. But beyond just the technicality of running a downhill, the muscle get really hammered, and if you're climbing, you know, 20,000, 30,000 feet climbing, it's extremely difficult. Running down that, your quads will be absolutely hammered, and you have to pace yourself because it's gonna hurt at some point, and your knee could hurt and you could get injured. I got injured twice in my running career from downhill running and never from uphill. It's always downhill that is problematic, and I don't mean getting injured falling, I mean just having some tendonitis or some issue. That's from the downhill running. That's from your muscle being absolutely hammered and not being able to, when you run down and you have an impact basically at every step, the impact is much bigger than on flat, your muscle get weaker, and then it's your joint absorbing more and more as you go within the race, and you will feel it. Your quads will be absolutely hammered, absolutely destroyed, and that's when the pain will come, and that's when injuries happen. So practicing that in training by running downhill for, you know, these like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 feet of a training session will help you so that on race day, when you're going down for 30,000 feet, your muscle are more used to the beating, and it will take longer before you're absolutely hammered. You will get there, don't worry, you will get there too, but it's gonna take a little longer, so maybe you'll be able to not get too badly injured. But the second thing that you need to do about that, and that's extremely important, is you gotta do strengthening exercise. That's the best way to avoid injury, is to understand what muscle group you need to train, and running is not sufficient for that. You need to reserve some time, maybe once or twice a week, you do some strengthening session. Strengthening exercise should be part of your main calendar. You shouldn't just run, and sometimes it's better to, instead of going for an 8-mile run, you go for a 5-mile low pace and you do 30-minute strengthening session. That's going to serve you very well, especially for hills, both on the uphill and on the downhill. And what are the exercises you should be doing? Obviously, I'll make a full video about that someday, but what you should be looking for is various forms of squats with added weight will be pretty important. You have to do some lunge, again with some weight. You can do some Bulgarian lunge, I think they're very good. Also for equilibrium a little bit, which is good because it's going to strengthen your ankle. You need to do some toe raise, some steps, so you could do that on stairs, but if you have, like in the gyms, like one of these steps with weight, it's going to be very good. And then the last one, which is the one that we all forget all the time, and I'm guilty of that, is core. You got to train your core, and there's a lot of exercise for that. So I know these were pretty high level, but look into squat, lunge, toe raise, steps, and core exercise, and you can fit that within 30 minutes. And try to not always do the same exercise, so you're gonna be a little bit more able to train different subgroup of muscle. And with added weight, it's very helpful. I'm usually aiming for sets of 3 times 15 or 5 times 10. Basically, a high number of repeat rather than the max repeat or these sort of thing, because you're not trying to bulk up, but you're trying to build resistance for your leg, which will be very, very helpful if you're running a mountain race, both for the uphill and the downhill. Part of preparing to run a mountain race is getting used to the type of terrain that you're gonna have. So try and look ahead of time if these hills will be more kind of the moderate incline or the steep incline. Will they be technical? And it's worth going out of your way a few times to try running in these conditions. We're not talking about physical conditioning anymore, but running conditioning, being able to have light foot and be comfortable. And there's little things that you need to practice that are extremely important. Number one is that we're not walking the uphill. Never. You never, ever, ever walk the uphill. You power hike. And there's a huge difference, which is one is more, I'm walking, and power hiking is you go with determination. You have a purpose. The uphill is not the time that you're slowing down, therefore taking a break. You're slowing down because it's uphill, but you're pushing. You're power hiking, and sometimes what that will mean is that you got to use some poles. So if you're gonna use poles, which I recommend for any race that you have more than 15,000 feet of gain, especially if it's steep, poles are extremely helpful. Use them. Go on hikes. Practice power hiking. Try to maintain, say, like a 3 or 3.5 mile per hour on a hilly trail. Just getting used to that. Get used to, try to walk as fast as possible. And what is the best way up? So it's going to be stepping on the right rocks. It's going to be, for example, when you're walking up, sometimes it helps relieve the pressure on your calf and your Achilles to it's hard to show it, but this is your toes and this is your heel. And if it's a hill like that, it would go like this, but that's creating a lot of pressure. But if there's a rock or something, you just put your heel on it, and it feels a little bit more like a stair, and that's very helpful. It's also finding if it's a dirt one, where will my foot hold strong instead of just sliding down? So these are things that you need to practice. It's hard to explain it. Okay, well, that's it, folks. So high-level summary, if you're hill training, there's 2 types of workout that you need to do. One is hill repeat, where it's a more interval-like, high-intensity burst. Make sure that you push for maybe 1 or 2 minutes and you have a rest afterwards. You need a warm-up and you need a cool-down, and you don't do very long session. Doing that once or twice a week will be very helpful and just helping your fitness in general. If you want to become better at running hill, then you also need to have this more grinding approach where you find a hill that you're able to run that gradient. And as you go further in your training, you'll run for longer amount of time or steeper gradient, and you're just gonna notice your legs are much stronger. If you're training for hills, because you have a race potentially with a lot of uphill, downhill, there's a few additional things that you need to do here. You need to practice running on technical, well, as technical as it will be. Get used to uphill power hiking, using poles, get used to running downhill. You need to strengthen your leg both with these exercise, but also doing strengthening session maybe twice a week, once or twice a week, focusing on squat, lunge, toe raise, steps, and core. As always, if you find these helpful, please leave a thumbs up. That's helping me a lot.